We are going to go now and say a very good morning here to the leader of the New Democratic Party, the honorable member for Signal Hill, Kitty Bitty, Lorraine Michael. Good morning.
Good morning, Randy. How are you?
Good. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling okay, actually.
Did you get some sleep?
I had about 4.5 hours sleep last night.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, and, I had about 5 the night before. We all had schedules where we were spelling people and that kind of thing, and so far doing well. It's... I lead a pretty healthy life. You can cope with a few days of this intensity when you do that. So,
do you find it all a little silly?
No, Randy, I don't find it silly.
I mean, I know the issue is serious. Don't get me wrong.
The issue is very serious.
But this process, do you not find all of this to be a little bit silly? And doesn't the process itself destroy the objective?
Randy, if we had operating all-party standing committees as all the other legislatures in the country do, this legislation would have come as a draft into a party, a committee setting where you can really, out of the confrontational setting, discuss the legislation and maybe get somewhere with it. But we do not have that non-confrontational discussion of legislation, and it's one of the weakest things in our legislature here in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's not a game when I say that. I mean, this is part of the democratic process everywhere else in the country except here, that we don't discuss really. You don't have to discuss every little housekeeping piece of legislation, but major pieces of legislation, it goes to a committee where you bring in the witnesses, where you listen to people together and you listen to information together in a non-confrontational way, and where you actually do change the legislation before it goes into the legislature to be discussed there. And
usually, sometimes when you can get those changes, you'll have all parties agree.
Well, exactly. And so if we had that kind of a system, the kind of thing we had to do over the last 3 days, probably would not have happened. We had to bring the issue to the public. The public had to learn what we were dealing with that piece of legislation. And by doing the filibustering, that's how we were able to get the public engaged. And believe me, through your open line show, I've heard the tweets that we're getting, people on Facebook, even people in the House.
Oh, there's a huge.
Last night.
I think the people who are, I will underline the word aware. Okay,
yes, yeah.
People who are aware politically in this province of what's going down. Even I have to say the staunchest of conservative supporters are bothered by both how this legislation came about and how it's going through.
Oh, yes, I'm getting tweets from people who are identifying, not party for party, some identifying themselves as PC, but saying, Ms. Michael, you're right on and keep it up. And they are as you put it, the aware voters.
Now, I use the forum this morning, which I apply to pretty well everything, is, can we test it? And my way of testing it is to take an example from our history.
Yes.
Under the current legislation that has become public, that has had an outcome that's beneficial, which is what the legislation is designed for,
right.
and lay that over the new legislation, would you see the same outcome? Would you have the same positive outcomes from the point of view of government transparency and accountability? And if the answer is no, then you got a problem. If the answer is yes, then obviously you don't have as big a problem as you think.
That's right.
So I heard a charge from Randy Edmonds of the Liberals basically saying, all the stuff we found out about the Burton Winters tragedy, we wouldn't know if it weren't for freedom of information and this particular piece of legislation. And if it is changed, we wouldn't have found this out.
Yes.
Can that be true? Because if that's true, then this legislation has to be deemed bad.
Yeah, I think he's quite right. I haven't seen every single bit of information that was asked for through, asking for the information through the Act. But I do know that anything, when you read this bill, the list is huge of every single thing that Cabinet in any way has to deal with is protected, even the agenda of a meeting, Randy, even agendas. And we will not get anything. Now, a public inquiry is different. Okay?
Yes, that changes the water on all the beans, yes.
That's right. So you can't say that Cameron wouldn't get the information because a public inquiry is different.
No. Would we have ever gotten the inquiry?
Well, this is the thing. We won't get the inquiries is what's going to happen.
There's when I was looking and I was talking to Minnie this morning, the overlay would have been all of that process of gathering information that led up to the calling of the inquiry. Would that have been readily available?
No.
Well, see, then if that's the case, if that's actually true, then this is bad legislation.
It is true because anything is going to be covered that in any way relates to a public body that can also get the protection under the legislation. That is stuff that had to go to Cabinet in any way related to Cabinet, whether the document even made the Cabinet table or not. If it was relating to Cabinet decision-making at all in any stretch of the imagination, it's covered by this bill. So we would not have gotten the information leading up to getting the inquiry. We would not have. We would still be in court, Randy. People would still be in court trying to get that information.
Wow. Now, let me go a step further with you. In talking to the leader of the official opposition this morning, talking to Dwight Ball,
yes,
he made it pretty clear that their direction on dealing with this piece of legislation was to tighten up or heavy up the role of the privacy commissioner. They want that position to be a lot more powerful, whereas they argue this legislation makes that position much weaker. Are you and he seeing this the same way, or do you think there's another direction that should be tackled?
Oh, no, this was, this is one of the major directions, and was one of the things I spoke to very strongly last night at one point, is they're gutting the powers of the commissioner in this bill, and I've been demanding from government, I kept demanding, please tell us why you're afraid of the commissioner's role. Why are you afraid of that? Because in legislation, the commissioner has to keep private, just like the clerk of the executive council. Like if the commissioner does an investigation and he gets access to cabinet documents, he has, under the legislation and under every law that we have, he is committed to privacy. He would never be able to reveal something that he got in the course of an investigation. It's in the legislation. So why are they taking his power away from him? This is what I don't understand, and saying, no, it's okay to leave the power for determination in the hands of the clerk of the executive council without having the external oversight. They're removing the external oversight over the official cabinet documents. And, we know what happened when the Auditor General was not allowed to do external oversight of the finances of the House of Assembly. I'm
afraid we do. So the next step? You go in this afternoon. They're going to introduce closure. This is done. And will be passed, no doubt. And there have been, I understand, a couple of amendments. But after that, this thing kind of goes away. Do you fellows feel at the end of the day that you would have done the right thing here?
Absolutely. I'm proud of what we have done. It was absolutely essential. And what we will have to do from here on in is to start monitoring. And, Randy, I have to say, and somebody out there is going to say, oh, yeah, she's doing that for political reasons. No. When this gets put in place and becomes an act, one of my commitments to the people of this province, we got elected as government in this province, and that act goes back and improves back to where we are and even better.
Lorraine Michael, the Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party, good to speak with you this morning, and I guess, have yourself a good weekend. The weather is nice. It would be nice, wouldn't it, to get out of the house for a day?
Well, I would like to get out in the garden, and I have a cousin's grandson who helps me with weeding, because I can't weed as easily anymore, so I hope to be out there and getting some weeding done in my garden.
Well, you'll get that hopefully by Friday night.
Good.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Randy.
All right, take care. Lorraine Michael, Leader of the New Democratic Party, talking about this legislation. See, these are the pieces for me. I wish I could get my hands on Mr. Jackman this morning. Pat, is there any possibility? Felix Collins, Minister of Justice, any possibility he'd come on? I don't know. I'm just saying, can we look for him? Because I'd like him to answer to those questions, right? About these past examples applied to this new legislation, would the outcomes be the same? And the answer I'm getting from all of the opposition is no, you wouldn't have got these outcomes. Well, then that makes this bad legislation, doesn't it? I want him to answer that for me.